All right. So our first review of the day is going to be from Sage. He's going to be giving his review of the video game Neva.
So this game came out on the 15th of October, just very recently. And this is not the first game from the studio. They also did a title named called Gree, I believe, in 2017. I believe that came out. And I played that back then. I was immediately sold on there being another game from the studio. They've got this, as you can see, just really incredible art style. It's very fluid. It's very colorful. It's got almost like a watercolor-ish touch to the hues of the colors and the way they kind of blend together, especially like the kind of bright morning skies in those sequences. And then there's also a lot of, in both their first game and this game, a lot of like what feels like very Studio Ghibli inspired kind of visual. Like there's a whole bit right at the beginning that's got this kind of swirling kind of demon energy, and you can see that it's like almost like ink coming out of the ground as these creatures pour up. And there's like movements of some of the enemies at times that look like straight out of uh, Spirited Away when No Face is chasing people down the halls, or in Princess Mononoke when they're kind of swirling in like the ooze from the spirit in the third act of that movie. It's got this very even Ghibli touch in terms of atmosphere. It's 'cause there's almost no dialogue in this. Like it's almost no dialogue at all. It's pretty much entirely visual storytelling. Something like a Gendy Tartakovsky, where it's really just all about what the animation and the movement is telling you. And you open up with you have this big ant, it's like an antlered wolf creature, and it dies being attacked by, one of these overwhelming monsters. And then there's a cub, and you take that with you, and the whole game you're slowly going from like protector to being its protector to it being your guardian effectively. And there's gameplay here that revolves around being able to like get it across the platforming sections early on when it's small, and then as you go it starts to be able to like it almost turns into your upgrade system in a way, like the relationship bonding pair of the characters. Like it almost becomes the upgrade system for the gameplay. It's very simple though in terms of that. It's got a little bit of combat here. Their previous game had zero combat. It was purely platforming and puzzles. Here they've got a small, simple but pretty satisfying combat system. Um, it's simple, but there's still some challenging timing to it, which I think kept it pretty fresh. There's also two difficulties to this game too. There's just like a standard, uh, not super. I didn't find it to be particularly difficult, outside of maybe one or two small bits where just the pattern and the timing was really precise on a certain thing. Um, but there's just like a story mode difficulty that if you're really just here for the art or for the narrative experience of it, you can kind of engage with it on that level. But then there are also some like optional areas you can go into, that are like some more serious, a little bit more actually difficult platforming. But in terms of what's required to get to the end of it, uh, it's pretty simple. This is one of those I think most people will be able to play, even if you're on the more casual side of gaming. And it'll be, I think, appealing for that reason too, because it's only like a 3 hour game. It's $20. You can get about 3 hours out of it. Um, like I said, breathtaking, gorgeous visuals, and the narrative I think is pretty effective for something that's so silent. It's like watching a. I mean, 3 hours is way too long to be a short film, but like a video game equivalent of a short film, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay. The visuals played some of the trailers, played some of the gameplay there, some of the boss fights in this game. And looking at some of the boss fights in the game there, the Shadow Wolf seems to be my favorite. I love the look of that, the red
Yeah, that
kind
was probably the best one.
that one, but it's got a lot of interesting creative kind of boss fights in this. And you said you can manage the difficulty there if you're just a person that just more appreciates the visual style of the game and you don't want that challenge of an experience. So how hard is the most hard difficulty of this game?
So it's just the two. It's like just like a standard kind of normal, and then there's a
Oh,
story
okay.
mode one. Um, I played it on standard, but I didn't find it particularly hard, except for there was a couple sequences with the like optional like platforming where you could kind of go down an extra pathway and do like a puzzle separate from where the game was kind of sending you. And some of those I thought were a bit more difficult, but they're all optional. So like if for some reason that gives you trouble, it's like you can kind of ignore this and you're still getting a full experience.
Okay. It is Cyber Monday right now. I know probably people watching this probably too late when we upload it, but it is 20% off on Steam, so people can get it right now. It's
Okay.
20 bucks on Steam, but 20% off. You can get it for 15.99 right now. And it's been nominated for quite a bit of game awards there. So it got nominated Best Art Direction, got nominated for Games for Impact, and got nominated for Best Independent Game there for the 2024 Game Awards. Um, High praise from critics there. Metacritic there on PC, 87 out of 100, 88 out of 100 on Switch. PS5 had 86 out of 100, Xbox 87 out of 100, Open Critic 94%. So really high praise that this game is getting all around there. Um, on the Switch, though, if people want to purchase it there, it's a little bit higher. It's like I see it's 30 bucks there if people want to get a
Mm,
physical copy there on the Switch.
they don't have it on sale.
Yeah, not that I'm seeing here on Best Buy or the GameStop website there. So yeah, you got that kind of going on. But yeah, do you think for a game that's a 3 hour experience, do you think it kind of caps off at like a certain price you would think people should pay for it? You think go no more than $20, no more than
I feel like $20 is like the perfect price for this.
okay, yeah. So don't go any more than that for it. And then there, any major issues with it?
Uh, no, not really. Other than maybe I maybe wish that there were just a little bit more challenging, like when it came to the bosses or the combat, because they look beautiful, and I still had a great time in the moment of playing those sequences. But I do wish they'd maybe been just a little harder, just made me think on my feet just a little bit more. It was a pretty breezy game to get through, and then their previous game didn't have combat at all. So I mean, that's somewhat intentional. They're not trying to make something that's super difficult. Um, but if they're experimenting with what they do and kind of what types of games they make, I hope that Nomada Studio, I hope that they are keep being more daring with that, changing it up more, and maybe even adding like a harder, higher difficulty too, just to I don't know, just to give you an option.
Yeah. What would you say is the hardest boss in the game?
Um, there was one bit where there's two deer coming at you from either direction. And sometimes the timing to like get out of the way of both of them could be like slightly tricky. I mean, I still didn't feel like it took a long time to get the timing down, but maybe a little bit more than the other bosses.
So I wonder. This is the one you're talking about?
Yeah, the second one gets up like partway through.
Okay. Ah,
There you go.
yeah. So you got that kind of going on. Yeah. Still looks. I
And
mean,
then
yeah.
your
Still great.
antlers like turn into spikes that come up across the entire ground, so you got to stay in the air too.
Mm, okay. Yeah. Looks like it be kind of annoying a little bit there. You get that. But yeah,
but ultimately still, not
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 super
really.
challenging. Not you're not dealing with Elden Ring bosses here or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, what would be your final thoughts and rating for Neva?
So yeah, I mean, I think this game is pretty great. I was a big fan of their previous work. I think they delivered everything that I was hoping they would for the most part in a small, compact little experience. I like to play short games a lot. The more the time goes on and give me a nice short experience. And I think this does that well. The art is amazing. The music, which I didn't mention before, is got an incredible soundtrack. Their last game did as well. Um, and yeah, it's a pretty heartwarming story. I mean, it's got a very Ghibli-esque fantasy and kind of connection with animals and nature. Um, some of the companion element, it even reminds me a little bit of like that Last Guardian game that came out in like 2016, 2017 or something like that, where it's all about kind of building this bond with this wolf that you have with you. Um, and it sucks you in pretty well. I think it really does. I'd give it a peek, I think, overall. Um, for the art to the music to the just the vibe and the atmosphere that you kind of have while having this on. All of it's really well executed. The combat is fun, even though it's simple. Um, but I did find it a little easy, and I would say more of a $20 game than a $30 game, as far as like what its prices are at in certain stores.
Yeah.
But I would still very highly recommend it to people.
So this was made by Nomada Studios there, Nomada Studios, and this is their first game. Gris is their first
Me and
game.
No Name did a full stream series for this as well, actually.
Okay. So yeah, this is the look of it right here. So there's no combat in this game. It's just puzzles and things like that.
Some like
Platform.
chase sequences,
Okay.
but it's like, it's not combat really.
Yeah. And still keeping that still great art style with the game too, like they had with Neva there. So people want to try that out. People can as well. The first game, if it's something that people are into. Um, but very nice. So you give Neva a peek. Give it a peek.
Yeah, I'd give it a peek. It's yeah. I feel like it's one of those you could recommend to people that are very casual or not even really into video games that much in general. These are some of those kinds of indie games where I feel like anybody could just look at them and just appreciate the effort that goes into the art of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I very much enjoy the art of it as well. I love to see kind of a art book of it actually of the different designs they did and the step by step process of that. I think I would be very interested to see that with it. How like they kind of released something for like Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse, how they had like a book of that. I would actually like to see that
Totally.
with the game of this. But yeah, so thank you, Sage, for your review of Neva there.